There's a version of security that looks like wisdom, but functions like a cage. And the worst part? You built it yourself. Not in a moment of weakness, in a moment of intelligence. You assessed the risks, weighed the options, and decided that having a safety net made sense. It did make sense. The problem isn't that you built the net. The problem is that at some point, and most men can't tell you exactly when, the net became the goal. The thing that was supposed to catch you if you fell became the thing you refused to leave. And you've been standing on it ever since, telling yourself you're just being careful. I want to talk about Marcus, 41 years old, 14 years at the same company. Good salary, solid benefits, respected in his department. Marcus had a side project he'd been developing in his evenings for 3 years. A consulting service built around skills he'd spent a decade perfecting at work. He had a few clients willing to pay. He had the knowledge, the network, the numbers on a spreadsheet that showed clearly it could work. But every 6 months, he'd look at the spreadsheet, do a new calculation, and arrive at the same conclusion. Not yet. The market wasn't right. His daughter was starting college. He wanted a bigger emergency fund. He needed 1 more year of experience. The justifications were always intelligent, always reasonable, always enough to delay for another 6 months. What Marcus couldn't see, what most men in his position can't see, is that the safety net had stopped being a financial instrument and become an identity anchor. The salary wasn't just money. It was evidence. Evidence that he was competent, that he was responsible, that he had things figured out. Without the salary, without the title, without the structure that held him, who was he? That question, sitting unanswered somewhere below the spreadsheets, was doing more damage than any market risk he'd ever calculated. This is what I call compensatory safety. The man who needs the safety net not because he'd fall without it, he's accumulated enough to survive a transition, but because the safety net is doing psychological work that has nothing to do with money. It's telling him who he is every time it deposits into his account. It's confirming that he's the kind of man who has things figured out. Remove the net, and suddenly he has to face the question that 3 years of evenings building a side project couldn't answer. Am I actually capable of doing this on my own terms, without the structure that tells me I am? The safety net becomes dangerous, not when you need it, but when it starts thinking for you. When every decision runs through it as a filter, when opportunities don't get evaluated on their own merits, but against the certainty of the net. And certainty always wins that comparison, because the net is real, the opportunity is potential, and the brain, especially under stress, prefers real over potential every single time. Here's what never gets said in the conversations about financial freedom and building something of your own. The problem is rarely the money. Men who stay too long in their safety nets aren't usually staying because they can't afford to leave. They're staying because leaving means finding out who they are without the confirmation the structure provides. And that's a risk that no spreadsheet can quantify. So the spreadsheet keeps growing. The analysis keeps getting more sophisticated. The justifications keep getting smarter. And the project stays on the evening schedule, perpetually almost ready. Marcus had a conversation with a former colleague who'd made the jump 5 years earlier. He asked her when she knew she was ready. She paused for a long time and then said, "I was never ready. I was just honest about the fact that I was never going to be ready waiting there." Marcus told me that sentence did something to him that 3 years of planning never had. Not because it was new information, because it named something he'd known for a long time, but hadn't let himself hear. The safety net isn't the problem. How long you let it define your ceiling is. There's a specific cost to every year you stay beyond the point where the net is doing more psychological work than financial work. Not just in opportunity, in identity. in the slow, invisible erosion of the belief that you can build something without the structure telling you you're doing okay. By the time most men decide to move, they've spent years convinced that they're still deciding, when really they've been postponing. If you're recognizing Marcus in yourself, I built something that goes directly at the patterns underneath this. It's called the Free Your Mind Kit. The ebook, The 5 Patterns Keeping You Trapped, dissects compensatory safety and 4 other invisible mechanisms that keep capable men anchored to structures they've outgrown. The cost of stability. Calculator shows you in real numbers what each year of unnecessary waiting has actually cost you. And the reprogramming audio tracks work at the layer the rational knowledge doesn't reach, where the automatic decisions about safety and risk actually get made. The link is in the description. Marcus launched his consulting service 11 months ago. It took him less time to reach his old salary than he'd projected. But here's what he told me mattered more than the money. The first month I realized I didn't need the safety net to know who I was. Something shifted that I can't really explain. It wasn't that I became confident. It was that I stopped needing confirmation from outside to feel like I had my life figured out. That shift doesn't happen by reading more, planning more, or building a bigger fund. It happens when you decide that who you are doesn't need a safety net to prove itself.